Welcome to Life with Jamie and More for 2023. Hey. I've been recording you. Oh, get off me. Oh, God. Oh.
Okay.
Can I use this?
Yeah.
Yes? Is that okay? Can I use it on my podcast? Is that okay? Yep.
Yeah.
So, you just listened to Jamie singing. I don't know if it was singing or just testing his voice out, but he was doing something. He was in our bedroom and the door was closed. And I was like, I got to record this. I just got to record this. And so I started recording it. And then, which is what you hear. And then I went into the room and Jamie is lying on our bed with his hands up on the headboard, making those sounds. And that's when I just crack it. That's when I just laugh. And I thought, I just got to share that because it was a moment of, like, I just found it so funny. And I just laughed. You could hear me laughing there and listening to it back. And I've played it to a few people since, and they've all had a good laugh. Some people have had some very interesting looks on their faces when they've been listening to it because they don't even know what it is. I don't tell them what it is, who it is, or anything like this. But it's Jamie. That is Jamie, and he is making those sounds. And it was just funny as. So that's at the start of my first episode this year of 2023. And this week, I got to talk to my first dad for this year, Chris. And Chris actually is really early on in the journey. He is 27 months in, as you'll hear him talk. And I'm not going to talk too much now. We're going to listen to him. But enjoy it. And he really, we have a good laugh. He has some great stories to tell of his journey. Enjoy it and
Okay, Chris.
get stuck in. Let's go.
Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the first guest of 2023, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy New Year. Appreciate you having me on.
That's all right, man. That's all right. So firstly, it's great to have you on here, mate. And I'm really looking forward to this because and multiple reasons why I'm excited about sitting here. And we'll come to those. And I think personally, like one of the big things is that from my own, because I talk a lot about kind of mental health here, right? Personally, from my own mental health perspective, sitting here doing this, what I'm doing right now, is huge for me, for my own mental health and my mental stability. And it is unbelievably, I realize how important it is for me to sit down here and listen, hear, talk about, some of my experiences, but also hear others and allow myself to feel like, okay, I'm not alone in this world that I live in, this bubble that I'm in. Because I'll be honest, I've struggled the last 5 weeks. I haven't really had any output. I haven't chatted to anyone in the last 5 weeks, since I last spoke to Frankie, my last dad. And it's been rough. It's been really rough. And and as you can hear, I've got a fantastic cold. And my voice is on the verge. So hopefully we can hang in there. My voice will hang in there till then. But I think honestly, like, I'm just like, I got to do this. I really, really want to do this. And I know that, it's going to help. I know it will help me. I'll feel really good after this and during it and after. For me, from a selfish perspective, so Chris, can you tell the listeners who are sitting there at home and they're going, okay, so why is Chris on here? What's going on with Chris? What's the world of Chris? So can you tell us that?
Sure. So my story is a little bit different, I think, than maybe some of your other guests you've had on. My son Bodhi is 27 months old, so we're fairly new at this. Like, a lot of things are new. There's still a lot of questions that we haven't had answered yet. A lot of things that we haven't gone through that I feel like some of the other guests might have had, but our journey sort of started when my wife Shariska was 14 weeks pregnant. We did the genetic testing ahead of time, not sort of anticipating. It was a box that we wanted to check. We're older, having our first child. She was 41, I was 39. So it was just a perfunctory thing that we sort of went through. And so we did the genetic testing, and we had a pre-birth diagnosis of Down syndrome with Bodhi. So that was that was sort of earth-shattering in its own way. But yeah, that was our sort of introduction to this community as a whole. And as a guy that has a lot of close friends and kind of keeps it pretty tight, it was something that I was like not so sure of what trajectory this was going to take, right? But the pre-birth diagnosis for us was pretty heavy, so that was something that was pretty alarming. So,
this pre-diagnosis was Down syndrome, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This was it. And how did, like, if you can give us an insight, if you think back to how you personally were when you got that, and then
sure,
because I think that's something. Yeah, how did you?
We've heard horror stories from friends of ours that have had this diagnosis, and really it's kind of how the news is delivered, right? And the person that you have, because excuse me, something you're going to remember for the rest of your life, right? And we've heard people who the genetic counselor calls them up, and it's just another phone call for them. We were fortunate enough that the woman we had was very caring and loving, and her bedside manner, so to speak, was really incredible. So I was on a call. I had just started a call, and my wife got the news from the genetic counselor, and to her credit, her detriment, she waited the entire hour until I was off my call, and I came downstairs, and she was crying, and I said, "What's going on?" And she didn't really know how to tell me. So she said, "I got off the phone with the genetic counselor, and they said our baby has Down syndrome. And million things go through your mind at that point, right? It was like, it takes your breath away for a second, but I remember we hugged and we cried. It was the first time we cried for seemingly maybe like a week or two. And she said the genetic counselor said we'd probably have questions. Let's call her back, because she told her I was on call. So we called the genetic counselor back, and she answered our questions. She explained to us, this is what the test entails. This is how it goes. Let's call in the doctor, who kind of reviewed the results. And so, we talk on the phone to them, and they say, based on the sample that we took, there's a 95% probability that your child will have Down syndrome. And so I said, okay, are there ever false positives on this test? And they say there are sometimes, but not generally when the result returns this high of a percentage in the first go around. Doctor said, I've been doing this for 27 years. I saw one in med school, and I haven't seen one since then. So like, all right. So they were great. They were gentle. They were caring. They were considerate. They spent as much time as we wanted on the phone, answered all our questions, not just about the process, but general questions about Down syndrome in general. My wife and I don't have anyone in our immediate families or maybe friend group who have a person with Down syndrome in our immediate sort of network. So that call with them was tough. And so we sat for a while. I remember like I took the dog for a walk, and the first call I made was to my parents, and remember calling them and got them both on the phone, and just like was crying to them. It's like they told us that our son will have Down syndrome, and I remember very specifically, it's like a mother's perfect way, and the way that a mother's love is. She didn't say I'm sorry, and she didn't say it's going to be okay, which I'm super grateful for. Like in retrospect, I forget the exact words that she used, but for whatever reason, at the time and place, it was kind of just what I needed. So that was the start of this process. And then after that, they said, if you want 100% certainty, you can do an amniocentesis, which is where they take a needle and they put it into the birth sac, and they pull out some fluid from in there. With that comes a small degree of risk that they jab the baby. It's not like a zero risk procedure, right? But they're like, if you want 100% certainty, that's the test we have to do. So we thought about it for a little bit, and we opted to do that. And then about 5 days later, on May 15th, we got our final diagnosis. That week was a tough week for us. Like a lot of tears were shed. We wondered if is the rest of the pregnancy going to be like this like doom and gloom, this sort of are we ever going to get back to like experiencing joy around the birth of our child? And
did it kind of change, Chris? Do you feel like that? This is not you're not to blame for any of this, because I think this is a very kind of perhaps a human feeling, that when up until that point when they said, it looks like your child's going to have Down syndrome, you were in that kind of zone. You were in that world of like, we're going down the typical path in a way, and then that was replaced with, okay, well, you're going down a path, but you don't even know what that path will even look like. And there's
100%.
And so you're like, you're still you're kind of on the fence with, I guess. So you're kind of on the fence. You don't quite know where to sit.
Absolutely. So, like I've suffered from anxiety like my entire life too, right? And so especially the anticipatory anxiety. So the fact that this sort of thing didn't have me completely unraveled, I think, is like a small miracle. But the thing is there's so many things you don't know, right? Like now you know your child has Down syndrome, but you don't know, are they going to have an ASD where it will require immediate surgery upon giving birth, right? Like you learn that later on in the pregnancy. What are the additional complications going to be? Like, oh, so you start like mentally preparing for all these scenarios, and like you're trying to tick these boxes. And the first question they asked us is, in the United States, we live in Chicago. They you have a choice. Do you want to continue the pregnancy, or do you want to terminate the pregnancy? And we don't necessarily, we're not religious people, so we don't have that to kind of worry about. But that was a real decision for us. And my wife said, like, I want us to sit with each of these decisions, right? Like, not make a decision today, but sit with this and see how we feel, and come together and then talk about it, right? Because you don't know if your kid's going to be verbal or nonverbal. You don't know if there's going to be an autism diagnosis. You don't know all of these things. So you've gone from, there's a real mourning process that takes place, right? Like you have in your head, all right, my kid's going to play soccer. He's going to do this. He's going to go to high school. He's going to get married. He's going to have a job. You're setting up planning, estate planning, and this and this and that, prepping for your kid. And then all of a sudden the news is like, oh, this isn't going to look anything like that, right? Like this isn't going to be anything like what we prepared for. So there's a real mourning of that loss of what you had planned for, right?
How did you get through that, Chris? Because what were the, was there a way that you, looking back, how did you yourself, like from your own experience, manage to get through that? Because you said before, like you suffer from anxiety, and that obviously I guess would have played a role in this. I don't know.
Huge. Especially when you try and control for every situation and plan ahead, right? It's because if you have anxiety, you walk into a room and you check out to see where the exits are, right? In case of something. You're planning for all these things, and then at some point I realized, like, you have to stop this. There's no way that you can plan for every possible outcome. And in some ways, like, where I could have been an absolute mess with this whole thing, it was just like, at some point there was a sense of relief, right? Because just the sheer volume of things that you will have to, try and take into account and plan for and manage, like, no one can do it. It's just insurmountable. So we had our diagnosis, and I think before we even made a decision, my wife and I are both kind of like type A personalities. Like, what's the research? We must have read like 5 or 10 books in the course of like 7 to 10 days. Like, you learn about it before we tell people necessarily. Maybe tell 1 or 2 close personal friends, and sure enough, like, oh, hey, I have a good friend. They have a kid with Down syndrome, this and that, and so we took a call with a friend of a friend, hadn't met him before, and this guy, it's the weirdest thing, but that's the thing about this community, right? Like, everybody is so kind of like open and giving of their time, right? And like, welcome to this. So my wife and I, we've been crying for like 2 weeks straight, right? Just this huge cloud hanging over us. And, this was a huge turning point for my wife too, because we got on the phone with these two, and they're like, the first thing they said was, oh my gosh, we're so excited for you. Right. This is before we had made a decision whether we're going to continue with the pregnancy or terminate the pregnancy. And they're like, we're so excited for you. And like, we weren't on a Zoom, we were on a speaker call, and I saw my wife's like reaction. She kind of like tensed up, and but to this day, she will say that is a huge turning point for her in this whole journey. And for me as well, because these people were like, they were happy for us, and we're like, wait, what? Because previously all the calls have been a little bit somber and melancholy and this and that, and um so we had this conversation with this couple, and coming out of that, we were just like, wow, all right, this isn't the end of the world, this isn't this and that. We've been doing some reading, we'd read some books about parents who had kids with Down syndrome. I mean, there was an incredible article in the Atlantic about the future of like Down syndrome in general. So we'd equipped ourselves with all the tools that we could to, I think, make an informed decision, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And when we were both on board, we're on the same page. We're like, yep, we're going to continue the pregnancy. And that's a very personal decision, right? And everybody can make their own decision. We're 40, we're established in our careers. We have a great family network. We have a great group of friends. Financially, we're capable of having some of these resources. It would have been a very different decision and conversation if we were in our early 20s, right? Like in a lot of ways. So we felt prepared, as best prepared as we could to continue the pregnancy, and we came to that decision. And the first day that we could like laugh and joke around about it, there was this kind of turning of the tide, like, okay, it's not going to be this super sad thing that kind of we carry with us for the rest of the next 6 months of the pregnancy, right? Like, we found our laughter, we were able to sit and talk and come together. And in a lot of ways, it brought us closer together. We would share things that we had read in our different books from that day. And then you realize, like, Down syndrome is Down syndrome. It doesn't mean that you're going to have this list of 15 to 20 other like problems, so to speak, that go along with it, right? Like, so that was huge for us. That was really big. So that was the sort of the 14 week to about the 20 week mark, where we sat with this for probably like 4 or 5 weeks, educated ourselves, talked to as many people as we could. So that was our process.
So you really kind of you went out, and we had a conversation, didn't we, Chris? Because I remember we spoke, didn't we? Was it before? We had a conversation before.
Did we? Or did we text, or did we talk?
We had a I think we had a, honestly, I can't remember, but there was some kind of through a mutual friend of ours, and got in contact and said that you had the diagnosis, the pre-diagnosis of Down syndrome, and he knew that we had Jamie, who was Down syndrome, and I honestly really cannot remember how we communicated and when we communicated, and even what I said.
I think you reached out to my wife first, and then I got your info, and we chatted a bit over on WhatsApp, and when we got into this ahead of time. So
yeah, oh man, like it's all a blur.
And
I think like it's a very interesting story, because I think there's so much here, but I like to kind of go on and kind of talk about your specific journey as the dad, because the dad, as dads typically, and as men, we tend to not talk about stuff so much. Like I find that if I go out there, I find on Instagram it's a lot of mums talking about their journeys, and they're kind of, the way they talk about it is so fluid and so smooth, and I'm just like, wow, we are very different beasts. I mean, we just like I think we just don't quite know how to put it all into words. Personally, I say personally, but generally, I think men are a little bit more introverted about talking about how they feel and the struggles that they have. What like I talk about kind of acceptance in here, and I talk about how the process of that, because acceptance doesn't happen overnight.
No.
Acceptance takes sometimes years for it to kind of really kick in, and I'm keen to kind of find out from you, when did it kind of start, and how is it kind of moved forward for you, the acceptance of
Sure.
having your son with Down syndrome?
Yeah, I ask myself that all the time. The first time the first time I accepted it was when we decided to continue the pregnancy, right? And then we never looked back. That was number one. Number two is, and I've actually, worked with my therapist a little bit on this one, but number two was, Bodhi he was an emergency C-section, right? So not, it was a week early, but, do the surgery, pull him out. Oh, Dad, do you want to come see the baby in the next room? And I haven't seen a lot of babies in my life, right? And I just like up close and personal, like straight out of the womb. And they're like puffy and a little bit gross, right? And stuff like that.
They
And
are.
so,
Yep.
some people are like, "Oh, it's the most beautiful thing." That thankfully they cleaned them off a little bit, and they had them under the light. But I looked at him, and my first thought was, and I'm so ashamed of this still, but like the first thought that I had was like, oh wow, you can tell that this kid has Down syndrome, right? Like, what's some of the features? And so like I said, I've worked with my therapist a lot on that, and my initial reaction, that was another period of acceptance, right? First time you see your kid. But it's acceptance with a twist, because you still don't accept it. I remember Bodhi was like 10, 12 months old. He doesn't have a ton of like the markers. And so my wife and I would always say, do you think people can tell? Like, do you think people can tell? So, you're sort of wrestling with that, even, when he was 1 year old. So there's still not 100% acceptance of the situation, right? Like, you're wondering if other people can see this and that. And, I think it's a constant battle. And like I said, Bodhi's he's a little bit behind. He's not walking, and some of his peers with Down syndrome are walking. So, every time we do his early intervention stuff here in the States. We give tremendous early intervention, which we've been so grateful for. But, it's not until you do the annual reviews when they finally tell you, like, okay, he's at about a 12-month for gross motor. He's at 15 months for fine motor. He's age appropriate for social emotional. You get these things, and every time that they're maybe not where you expected them to be or planned for them to be, or you're reminded of the fact that, yeah, okay, this is different from how I imagined our journey being. You're always reminded of some of those things. And so I don't think that I have like true acceptance of the situation, because in some ways, right, there's always a little bit of denial, and it's a sticky point with my wife and I, where I'm like, I just want his life, and I want to raise him as normal as possible. Like, I don't want to like make exceptions for this. And then she says, no, you have a child with special needs, and we have to make accommodations for this, and this. And, she's right about it, but I'm still a little bit in denial about some of that stuff. So, is that acceptance? Is that, me still
right.
wrestling with it? So it's constant.
It is. And I suppose, I don't know, with the poem, which I think you might have heard talk about, and you were nodding away there. So like, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. How is that poem, has that, because of how your journey, how has that, did you resonate with that poem in any way, or did you find it like Did you not? I'm interested.
I haven't read it until I think I heard your first or second episode a couple months back. So I had it. Someone had sent it to us when we had our diagnosis, and I remember we
Right.
cried
Mm.
because it was so true. Because you, yeah, like I said, I want my kid to be a superstar athlete.
Mm.
Planning on, we're already saving for my kid's college, right? Like, and you just get completely derailed.
Mm.
And I forget, it was one of your guests. They said, but this is absolutely what I needed in my life
Mm.
at this point in time, right? And I feel like that hit home with me too, because in some ways, like, would we have pushed a typical kid too hard? Would we be even more distraught if he was behind on, these things? Because my wife and I are kind of overachievers with some of this stuff. Like, it forces you to just slow down, right? And kind of take some of these things in stride. But yeah, the first time I heard that, um, and then I heard you read it again, and like I said, I hadn't heard it in a long time, and I was like, ah, shit, this is just like exactly what we're going through and experiencing, and like, hey, Holland's not a bad place to be, right?
Mm.
Like, I mean, um,
It's
so
just it's that simple thing. If it's not where you had it's not where you had planned to be and where
yeah,
you thought
yeah,
you were going to be, is it? And I think that's the key take for me. That's the key takeaway of that poem, is that, like, it every time I read it, and I probably need to read it more often, and kind of just kind of remind myself, because I often find myself that I'm like, shit, man, you know, I still want to be in Italy, but I'm not,
and you did all the legwork for Italy, right? You read all the books.
Well,
That's
actually, I didn't read
how
shit
was
books,
that?
mate. I was like, I am so not. I,
Uh,
I just don't even read. I no, I'm the total opposite of you, I think, because I was like, I was just like, no, I'm just going to freeball this. I'm just going to go with whatever
I
I
know.
know, and
Sure.
um, and yeah. So I like total opposite. And it just kind of uh yeah, it just all obviously happened.
Yeah.
But I think the thing from this, and is that it is a very because it's such a it's a very it's a traumatic experience. There's no way and there's a lot of grief involved with this as well, because it's a huge mental adjustment and shift, however you want to say it, to where you kind of need to be. And mums and dads both have this. Mums talk to their, the mums about it, and they do that. Dads, we often don't have dads that can kind of relate, and we're probably not really. We'll rather shoot the shit about, you a game or something else. We won't actually really talk about
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Did you have dads, friends, mates, buddies who, and do you have any now who you feel that you can pick up that phone, and when they call you or whatever, and be like, hey man, like, I'm having a shit time, like I'm
Yep.
struggling. Do you have that little circle? Do you have that tribe for yourself?
Yeah. Yes. 100%. Like, my friends and, our immediate family, like, that's such a huge part, I think, and played a huge part in our decision and understanding that we had this network and we had these people that like have our back no matter what. Like, my group of friends is just unbelievable, and that, half of them have kids, half of them don't. The half that do, they're like, look, we don't have kids with special needs. My one buddy said it best. He's like, it's like he says, you're going to be a great dad. And he goes, he's like, it's like picking up a new video game and starting it on expert mode. You know,
Oh, I love that. That is
right.
that's a great analogy. I love it.
Yeah. So
Game
he's like, you don't
expert
read the
mode.
instruction. He's like, you don't read the instructions. You don't start on like, you know, easy, you know, beginner. He's like, you just dive right into expert. And he's like, you got
It's
this.
like
So
highest
like,
level
yeah.
possible. Boom, there it is. Let's do it.
Oh yeah. So one thing that we did that, you know, it was good for us, and when we decided to carry on with the pregnancy, we hadn't told a lot of people yet, right? Maybe just my parents, my wife's parents, and the first conversation we had, like, we realized that people don't know what to say to us, right? Like when we had this diagnosis. So I wrote this letter, I drafted this letter, and I'm like, this is our situation. And you know, we worked it a couple of times, but I'm like, this is what this means. We've decided to continue with the pregnancy. If you have questions, right? Like, I attached like a link from National Association of Down Syndrome. Like, these are some questions you might have,
Oh,
and it's
okay,
laid
right.
out here in this. And we sent it out to everybody. I joke with my
Wow.
wife because she is, you know, that, and that was like our announcement to people, right? Like, hey, we're pregnant. You guys know we're pregnant. This is the news we have to share. It doesn't have to be an uncomfortable conversation. We're pretty open about this. But here's some literature that can answer some of these questions for you ahead of time that you might not know, and it dispelled some rumors and myths, this and that, and there's a quick primer. And then as soon as I hit send, I think it was like 5 minutes, my phone started ringing, and it was like all my like best buddies, and you know, some of them are crying, some of them are like, you know, checking the temperature of the situation. But my wife and I, we can't keep secrets for, well, we can in our professional lives, but you know, like with our immediate group of friends, that's always something that I have no problem picking up the phone and calling. You know, I have one of like, you know, 10, 15 people at any time that I feel like I can pick up the phone and call, and you know, they'll always answer in the day and age when
Wow.
they're like, oh, why didn't you text me? So
Wow, that's great. So you can pick up
we're
that phone
super fortunate.
and you can pick up that
Yeah.
phone and you can call them and say, you know, like, hey, I'm really, I'm honestly, I'm struggling because I'll be honest, man. I don't think I kind of, because I needed this the other
Yeah.
week, and I just fucking lost it. I was just like, it was just too much going on, and I lost it, and I just was a fucking wreck. And so I've it's really good to hear that, you know, if you were like, I need to talk to someone, I need to get it out, I need to just someone to listen to, like me, and not judge, and not, you know, I just wanted to listen while I just get it out. You've got those, you have that.
Yeah, our situations are different though, right? Like, I mean, I live in Chicago, 20 miles away from where I grew up. Like, some of my friends, been my friends since high school, you know, my friends from college. I mean, shit, I've been out of college for 20 years now, which is ridiculous to say. But you know, like, you're an expat, right? It's a way different situation, you know, for you and for us. And so the other thing I will say is that here in the States, there's groups and organizations you take your kids to. And so, you know, my wife and I have had dinners with some, you know, men and women who have a child with Down syndrome. And, you know, those are the people that I talk to get like, all right, I need a Down syndrome specific question answered. You know, it'll be a text with those guys, or like, I'll write it down for the next time I see him at dinner, or something like that. But the community, like I said, you know, I have such a close group of friends. Like, my joke was, I was saying to my wife, Shariska, I'm like, she'd planned one of these dinners when she was still pregnant. I'm like, look, I don't want any more friends. I got enough friends. Like, I'm on a one in, one out policy, and like, I don't have anybody that's got to go right now. So, but I tell you, like, people in the Down syndrome community around us are just so welcoming and so giving of their time and knowledge, and you know, just willing to talk and eager to talk. Like, and trade tips and, hey, we have a really good therapist for this, like, and they do work in the city. You should get this person, or like, so we'll just be having a beer and be like, it was one of the most awkward things because, I had gone to college with this guy randomly, and our wives became friends. And then we showed up to dinner, and I'm like, "Wait, I know you." And I just remember he was like, he played on the football team, and I played soccer, and I just remember him being like this, uh, and we were just having a beer, and the conversation was just so natural, right? Like when you have that bond over something like that, it takes away a lot of the pretense, right? It doesn't matter if you did this, or you have a job here, or he does this. A lot of that stuff kind of melts away, right?
Because you both live in Holland, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You're both
Yep.
in Holland. You both got your journeys are different, but you're both in Holland, and you both kind of live in it, breathing it, and that's the thing, right? Is that your tribe, and that's so important, and I think like a lot of guys don't have this, and I'm also I don't like a lot of the no actually I don't think it's one of the reasons I started this. I just wanted to kind of talk about the shit that like I realized I wasn't talking about for 11 years. 11 years.
Yeah.
I'm still dealing with this shit. I'm still like, I've got like, I've got, enough trauma to go around for everyone. Like, but it's so good to hear that, like, you're 3 years, almost coming up to, the kind of 3 years in a sense, like you're into this, and you've got a good network of dads and a support network to kind of get you through, because you need it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of key. That's having that support network is really key.
100%. I don't think I could have done this without, like having such a good group. And, it was, I think, I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but I remember like 10 years ago, I read something like, you have to be the friend to others that you want to have, right? Like it's cheesy and it's this and that. But when I recognize that, I'm like, all right, you got to put in the work. You got to show up for people. You got to show up when their kids have stuff. You got to take the call and not send it to voicemail, right? And when you're that kind of friend to person, you get a lot of that in return, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you're the friend that you want to have, to other people, I think you get that back in return when you sort of need that help and support.
I think, Chris, to be like that is to be able to do that. I really think you have to be you've got to be mentally in a good space to do that, because not everyone can do that. They may want to be able to do this, but they're not able to do that.
Yep.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because to be in that headspace, having a network is a part of it. It's not everything. Having a network is definitely a big part of that, but it's not everything. For you to be able to operate as who you want to be the best dad, the guy that shows up, the guy that gets stuck in, makes those phone calls to their friends to see how they're doing rather than phoning you, like that kind of shit, right? What do you do to fill your cup? Because you talk about work, you work. I don't know what you do, but how do you balance your world? How do you fill your cup? How do you do it? What do you do?
Yeah, work used to be a great outlet because I work at the Board of Trade in the trading pits, where you yell and scream, and you're fighting with guys for trades, and you're yelling and screaming all day. So you had all of that, and then I married a woman who said, that's too aggressive. We don't talk like that.
But your job is a stressful. It sounds like a stressful job because you're
yeah,
battling. You're
100%.
almost fighting with everyone around you to try and get those
Yeah.
deals right.
Yeah.
So that's it. But so is this. So that okay. So you've got that.
That was huge. Yeah, that was huge. I played a lot of sports. Obviously, growing up, and then as you, after we had Bodie, you know, it's like I realized my wife was not letting me go out and golf for 5 or 6 hours, you know, on the week. So like,
okay.
So
so just rewind.
Before that,
you were going out playing golf. Is that right? You were going out playing golf before.
Golf. Like we have a Sunday night basketball league. Like I played soccer in college, so I was always playing soccer. Like just staying active, right? Like because you know, the more you busy yourself with stuff, like the you know, the less time you have to think about that stuff. So, but yeah, nowadays. I have a therapist that I talk to, you know, once a week, and it's some days like I don't have shit to talk about, and we just we sit there, and you know, she listens to me complain. I feel like my therapist probably like hops on the call and she's like, I wonder if this is going to be like a big mental health call, or if I'm just going to have to listen to some gossip for an hour.
But it's healthy. Chris,
it's healthy.
Can we just talk about this, because I want to come back to like how you fill your cup, because you mentioned the therapist before, and I'm glad you mentioned it again, because this is something which is I'm really happy to hear that you do this, and I think it takes real effort, and it takes self like to make that step to do it, and to be like, okay, I'm going to go and see someone who I don't know and tell them a lot of the shit that I can't talk to other people about, stuff that I can't talk to my wife about, stuff that I can't talk to anyone else about. I can talk to this person, and they're not going to judge me. They're going to sit there and they're going to listen, and they'll maybe give me some tips, some good tips, because they'll start to know me, start to know my kind of strengths and weaknesses. And it is a healthy thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. And you get out of it what you put into it, right? Like, sure, there's catharsis and just sitting there and you know, opening up to a person, but like, you know, you have to do some work in between as well. So, I mean, and I've been seeing therapists since I was a kid, and it's gotten, you know, it's been 25 years since I've gotten to a point, and now it's like a society that's way more open about speaking about mental health in general. And this isn't a stigma. There's no shame in this, right? Because, you know, I was seeing therapists from when I was a kid for my anxiety and a lot of that stuff.
How old were you when you started then?
Probably like 11, 12. And I was mortified at the time. Like if anybody knew that, like, you know, back in 1993, like, well, forget about it. So that was a big secret I had for a long time, you know, probably through till I got out of college. So I have that as one outlet. And that's sort of like a, you know, a personal thing. Like it can be heavy, it can be lighthearted, it's more about like navigating relationships and stuff in my life, right? At this point. And my wife and I, we saw a couples therapist when we first got our diagnosis. We went through our thing. And again, on a referral from a friend, like, I have somebody that can help you with this. So we started speaking to this woman when we got our diagnosis to, you know, talk about this. And she is extraordinary. She is wonderful. So, you know, now we've had Bodie, he's 27 months, and we still talk to her every 2 weeks. Now it's more about like our relationship and stuff rather than like, hey, help us get through this diagnosis. So there's that. You know, I do have to have some me time. Like Shreyska said, she says, you're just way better and you're more present. You're more like, you're less stressed when you go to the gym after work and then come home after that, right? But there's like some guilt with that, you know, like Bodhi has a lot of therapies throughout the week, and you want to be there, you want to see what he's doing, you want to see how the therapist is interacting with him. And so I try not to miss those, but they're literally like all the time. So,
Yeah.
uh, there's some guilt with that. But it really is good for me when I can go to the gym and, feel better about the way I look and get some of that out. And, I box a little bit too, and that helps. So
God, it's just like,
it's,
it sounds fucking amazing.
but it's like 30 minutes a week, right? Like I see my trainer and
Yeah.
maybe I go to sparring one time, but sometimes it backfires and it's humiliating because when you go and you box, like you can't play boxing, right? Like you can go and you can move around the ring. You know what I'm saying? Like you can play soccer, you can play basketball, but
Yeah.
like when you decide to go
You're doing boxing.
and throw it around in the ring with a guy, and one of you oversteps your bounds, it can get real in a hurry. And sometimes you need this outlet, and then you end up getting humiliated. It's like, oh fuck.
Oh, right. Okay. So sometimes you're like, shit, man, wasn't a good idea to kind of throw that left hook. Like,
yeah. No, exactly. So, but yeah, talking to people and like I need time with my friends. Like that is
just
huge.
go back? Sorry,
Yeah,
Chris. I just want to go back to that boxing because
sure.
that sounds like something which is, which I think is important to kind of pick out what it is when you're doing that. Like when you're actually in that ring and you've got the gloves on, and from the moment you arrive at the boxing ring and you're like, getting on, what is going on in your head? Like what's when
Oh
you
man, yeah.
like
It's wild. You go in and you're sizing everyone up, and there's a lot of faces you see every week, and you're like, all right, you know how it's going to go with this guy, you know how it's going to go with this guy, but there's anxiety with it, right? Like you're going to go in there and there's like a room full of people. You don't want to embarrass yourself, like and there's definitely guys that are there that are just trying to like work out, right? It's not going to be like a huge brawl. And there's other guys that are wild cards. Like there's a guy that just got out of prison. He's like all upset about something, So like there's other guys but I tell you what, I wish I found boxing earlier in my life because once you can control that adrenaline, I think it's actually a very helpful tool, right? Because like you get this adrenaline, you get this huge surge, but when you can work through that and keep a clear head, it's a very valuable tool, right? Like everything slows down. It was so great when I would go back to my other sports that I'd played for my whole life. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like in slow motion. I can handle this, and so it's very interesting. Other than taking a lot of shots to the head, I would encourage it for people. It's like an outlet, as well as you learn a lot about yourself as a person too.
what have you learned?
Like I said, I mean, it's humiliating at times, right? When all you want to do is like just sock this other guy, and they're putting it to you. Like tense muscles are slow muscles, so you have to be loose. You know what I'm saying? You have to get past that. You have to get past the tightness. You have to get, you have to remember to breathe. You have to take a lump and shake it off real quick because there's another one coming right down the pipe. So
Yeah.
it was a valuable skill that I learned. When I started it, I started like 11 years ago.
Oh wow!
Like that, but,
okay.
Yeah.
After
I had my second knee surgery. Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine getting into the ring with someone that I just don't know and putting on boxing gloves and whatever else. It sounds like fun. Actually, we have a close friend of ours who she disclosed to us last year. Was it last year? And she'd been doing it for like 2 years. It's like the person I least expected to be doing it is doing boxing. We're just like, what are you doing? Like, this is incredible. And she's like, yeah, she just loves it. She's like, it's her. She just gets out there and just,
it's great. And I'm telling you, 80% of the time, people are usually willing to work with you, right? Like if you're a novice and you go in there with someone who's had some fights, like we were to get in the ring, like I'm not going to start you with like a bunch of punches, right? I'm going to let you feel yourself out, get your feet under you. So you have to, go to the right gym where you're not working with guys that are like training for fights and this and that, like nonstop. And where, yes, but it's it's a good activity.
So that fills your cup. You're kind of it's very it's a adrenaline pumping. You're focused onto what you're doing as well. You're not thinking about wiping the backside of the baby. Like that's not what's going on.
No, lift weights, do some cycling.
Cycling, right?
But again,
Awesome.
cycling. But the time with my friends is huge. And if I don't get, because I say this lovingly,
here we go.
My wife is a very serious person, and we don't have as much of the casual banter and the joking that you do. That's not our relationship. Some couples have that relationship. That's just we have a great relationship, but that's just that's not necessarily we come home, we trade jokes, and so we laugh, we joke around, but so I need to laugh. I need to go meet my buddies and hear funny work stories, share stories. One dumb thing that I do, I don't know if this fills my cup or if I just enjoy, if I see scrolling through Instagram or Twitter or something, and I see a funny meme or something, I'll screenshot it. And I send out this thing twice a week to my friends with all the best memes that I saw for the week. And they've come to enjoy getting it. They're like, "Hey, where's the email? I haven't gotten it." I'm like, I was busy with Christmas. I haven't done it in a few days. But,
Oh, that's cool.
So all sorts of shit.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that is very cool. Good on you.
Yeah.
Okay. What about I have some questions here, but I'm trying to just pick something. You talk about your wife, and I forget your wife's name. Can you remind me what your
Shariska? Yeah, Shariska. Yeah.
A fantastic name. So how is having Baldy having Baldy kind of come into your lives? How is that kind of played out? Because it changes a relationship. I've had talks with guys about this. Is it when you throw a third, when you put a child into a relationship, the dynamic changes because all the attention goes on to the child, whereas a lot of the attention is focused onto each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so naturally it goes to the child. But when you have a child who needs more attention, needs more help, needs requires additional services of us as parents,
mm-hmm.
those things can be challenging for relationships and challenging for us because there's no rule book on this. We're just learning how we go with this.
Yep.
And finding out kind of where you are. And you said you guys do a class together, a therapy class, therapist, like a couples therapy. Is that right?
Yeah.
And did that happened after you guys had Baldy, or
no? It happened. It came about because we got the Down syndrome diagnosis, and we decided that we needed someone to help us through this, and with the acceptance with this and that. And so that's why we enlisted the help of her originally. She was so good though that we've continued on, after you, and she's been great. I think that is huge. It's helped us immensely, right, in terms of keeping our sanity in a lot of ways, right?
That's really good. How often do you get some kind of one-to-one time with her, and go out and have dinner and have sort of that?
See, again, we're super fortunate because my parents are both able to. They live kind of close by. Chicago traffic's a nightmare, so they're 20 miles away, but it's about an hour drive. So they're very close. Any time we need something, the other day, my mom called me. She's like, "Can you buzz me in the front door?" I'm like, "Why are you at our house?" She's like, "Oh, Sharice wasn't feeling." She's like, "Sharice wasn't feeling well," and so like I'm saying, like literally, we can just pick up the phone and call, and like they'll drop stuff, and
That's great.
her mom helps out like a bunch too. So how often do we get out? We get out, the two of us. We do a lot of things with friends, right? So this last year, we've had a wedding, we've had a couple of 40th birthdays, we've had this and that. I would say we do maybe a date night once a month, whether it's
Oh
just
wow,
dinner, the
that's
two
good.
of
Good
us.
on you. That's
Yeah,
great. Holy shit! I want to do that. I want to do that.
regrettably, she got these tickets to the opera, and she took me to the opera twice, which counted as our date night, which I wasn't thrilled about. But you know, I got a I got an extra nap in. No, we have a great like I said, we have a great network. We have two sitters that we kind of have on call that we sort of love.
Right,
So
fantastic. So you've got
it's
wow.
so nice being close to friends and family, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
they can just kind of drive in and help us out.
Oh,
Like it's immensely beneficial. And
yeah.
again, that like we kind of, I don't want to say expected that, but like that was huge in our decision that like, yeah, we can handle this, we can do
Yeah.
this, right? Like,
So that all those things played a role in like you going like, okay,
yeah.
maybe like we can do this. Like, and I think that's actually really important because it's the decision could have been a different decision.
100%.
Like, and but this is what it is, right? And so you kind of
I
work with
would,
everything.
yeah, I would say to anybody that has a pre-birth diagnosis or gets a diagnosis in the hospital, right? A birth diagnosis, right? Would be, you know, you can educate yourself as much as you can, but just try and find with Facebook now, the way that it is. And like, there's so many groups. My wife started it. My wife's a real go-getter. She started a group, right, for people with Down syndrome. And now like, there's actually, there's 4 or 5 women from Japan who are in like her group with this stuff. But I would say that, when we had that first conversation with that couple that said, congratulations, like we're so happy for you, and this and that. Um, and then we, talk to them further. They're like, we're very fortunate. The US doesn't get a lot right with social services, but the early intervention services that we have here are great. So from birth until age 3, we have a speech path that started at birth. My wife looked up like the best lactation consultant in the Chicagoland area, found this woman who happened to be a speech path. She also wrote this book and does all this stuff on kids with Down syndrome. It was just fortuitous that she found this woman. She helped coordinate our entire EI team. So from birth, you have speech, you have physical therapy, you have developmental therapy, you have occupational therapy, and if you want, you have a nutritionist. So those are the 5 people that we see, and we see them once a week. And PT we get twice a week at 2 different locations. And so we had all these questions about early intervention and how it worked. And because we had this pre-birth diagnosis, we were able to set all that stuff up, so that when Bodhi was born, and we got out of the NICU, we basically kind of started that stuff right away. And this conversation that we had with these people that gave us so much information, which is why I say to try and like find people that are in whatever circumstance or situation you might be, right? Because they're just such a wealth of knowledge. This guy said it best. He's like, it's like parenting with training wheels. Like you get these people that come to your house like a couple of times a week and they just show you how to play with toys with your kid, and you didn't even, so you're being guided through a lot of this stuff. Like, here, this is your homework for this week, work on having them try and stick this in here, right? So it is really like, it's like parenting with training wheels, because you have all these specialists and these experts, right, that are there with you, um you know and showing you all this stuff. So when we heard about that, and I was like, oh wow, all right, this is maybe doable, right? Like we don't know all this stuff. Like I don't, and of course I bought the like the physical therapy textbooks about gross motor and fine motor and this and
Right,
that.
right, right.
So
Of
I'm
course
like
you did, right?
reading
It's like,
yeah, I mean, well,
like,
yeah. So I'm reading these things, and like finally, I was like a third of the way through two of them. I'm like, oh fuck this! Like, I'm just gonna let the professionals. I'm like, I'm gonna keep this here as like a resource, and maybe in the corner, so they know that I like might know what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna let these people
do you
do their
sometimes feel
job.
it's like this information overload on you though? I feel
100%,
it's
100%,
like all
100%.
this you like, yeah, just like so much on you, and you're like, what the hell am I supposed to do with all this? Like,
100%, 100%.
and
And you know, he, you don't. And then it's like, yeah, I found out the first year was tough, but like Bodhi he is very stubborn, and he will do things his way. And if you try and like do something your way and force it on him, it will just backfire spectacularly. And the speech path who like works on feeding with him,
yeah,
she like would admonish me. She's like, you have to stop like forcing this on him. He feels the pressure, he feels this, he feels that. What was the thing, like my wife would remind me at every meal, and I would be like, oh my god, you too, like everyone's like ganging up on me. And but I realized that it was a valuable tool, because he's very particular. He's a little bit stubborn. You're not going to be able to beat him over the head with this stuff and get him to do things your way. So it's like, even if you read all the textbooks and you know all this stuff, no guarantee that that's going to work with this
no, it's
kid.
not.
You
It's
know what I'm
not.
saying? So it's like, at which point I started just scanning it and getting the overview instead of
Yeah,
doing deep dives into everything. But
it's like, yeah, you talk about kind of language, right? And I've touched on this before in a previous kind of episode, like, and it's always like some kids have their speech is kind of delayed, or there's no speech, and of course, like, there's a whole realm of things going on. And anyway, um, I'm an English teacher, and for those who grew up with me and know me, still can't get their head around the fact that I'm an English teacher and the fact that I run an English school, because I got the worst grades at school in English and math, and I sucked ass at all those. And here I am. I'd like to say I run a successful English school, and I'm not the best teacher. I have other guys that do way better jobs than me at doing that. But one thing that I really learned, and again, one of my teachers actually kind of helped me get my head around this, was that I started to understand the concept of like, a lot of kids always have a need to communicate. They generally will have a need to kind of want to say something, right? And so I started with my youngest son, Joshua, is actually because they both, Jamie and just going to give a bit of overall summary. Jamie and Joshua both understand Japanese and English. Jamie, we were told by a doctor who can, who said to us, stick with one language with him. Don't teach him one or the other. I think you should stick with Japanese because we're in Japan. And I was just like, well, the shit, that ain't gonna happen.
yeah,
We're gonna speak both languages to him. And so that's what we did, right? And thank God we did, because I just didn't give up. I just kept talking to him in English, and same with my youngest son Joshua as well, right? But one thing I really and I like to kind of share this little bit of knowledge with you and with everyone about how I feel. I got no research on this at all, right? I got zero fucking research, and it's purely what I have learned and teaching in the past, more so the past 10 years, is that if you create the need for your child to speak, if you create that need, now what does that need look like? How does that replicate itself, right? Is that it can sometimes feel like like your child will call out your name like milk, for example. They want milk, right? But I kind of feel that if you, or they want milk or juice, or they're crying or something. I don't know. It's difficult to explain, and I might actually end up saying kind of taking all your airtime here, mate. I might actually do an episode on this, and kind of go into it a bit deeper, because I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, there's a real need, and creating a need for children to use the language, and they will. And I've seen Jamie. He really, I kind of pushed him with English, because what I learned in the classroom while teaching my kids, I was like, shit, I can do this with him, and I can actually make him learn how to communicate what he wants, because his language skills are like they've got better, but they still he is unable to communicate how typical children communicate. Lots of screams, lots of noises, and so it's a real world challenge for us. For me anyway, is kind of language and communication and all that. And I think that it's tiring for us as parents, because we want the kids to be able to communicate, want them to be able to do this and that, and because we want them to have, quote unquote, the kind of typical life, a normal life, right? Give them all the ammunition, give them all those things that we that we feel are going to benefit them, and it's tiring, man. It's really tiring.
You're like, no, big time.
Because with a typical child, it's very different. You don't typically send your typical child off to physiotherapy, and all the other therapies that you just don't. You don't feel that you need to. Really. What is your biggest worry and concern about going forward?
We've been so fortunate to this point with his health, and no surgeries to this point, which is fairly rare. But biggest worries, geez, shit. When will it's just bullshit. Like, will he be able to ride a bike? Will he be able to drive a car? Will he be able to get a job that's can sustain himself? We're a little bit older. Like, will we equip him with all the tools he needs to be successful in his life before we die, or are incapable of caring for him? Because we've accepted that that's going to be something we have to do until we're not going to get the retirement where we send the kids off to college and then can travel the world and do all some of that stuff, right? Maybe necessarily.
Yeah. Well, we can dream of that, mate. We can dream of that. It's like dreams are free, but reality is a whole other issue.
So it's all of that. He's only 2. The autism stuff tends to show up when they're like 4-ish. The big thing is like that I think about all the time is like, will he understand? I was an English major in school. Will he understand the nuance of, this author when he is writing something this way? Will he be able to tell the subtleties of different jokes, the subtext of stuff? Like, it's shit like that. I think of something new every day. Yeah. So biggest worry is, will he be able to thrive in this world as we know it, in the way that it's headed, right? That's that.
So how do you kind of get through that? Because obviously you think about that. How do you try and bring yourself back to like?
To be honest, like it's the craziest thing because we've talked a little bit about my anxiety and all of its anticipatory stuff. So you always think about these outcomes and then plan for them. But like I haven't been able to do that with Bodhi because I think honestly, I think part of my brain was just overloaded. Like it's like if you tried to dissect every single problem and think about the thousand different solutions for each of them, like I would short circuit, right? So I think my brain's just like you literally can't do that. And for the first time in my life, I'm able to sort of tackle things kind of like one day at a time, one week at a time, right? And not prognosticate and forecast and think about like all these different things. It's actually helped me be more present, which is a gift in and of itself. It's something I've searched for my entire life. And finally, because of the sheer magnitude of problems that I would have to be problem solving for, you just can't do it, right? You just like, no, I don't think anybody has the bandwidth. So in some ways, it's like, oh, it's all right, to be taking it a day at a time here and there. But you think about the long-term stuff all the time. So
I struggle to. I actually find if I look to the future, if I look like and I think, okay, like what's Jimmy going to do after? Well, actually, but basically, like he has junior high school is compulsory, and then high school is not compulsory in Japan. So basically, high school you got to try and find a high school that will accept him. We're looking at mainstream high schools that offer support systems for him, and so my kind of anxiety is actually his high school. That's my next one. When he goes into high school, which is the year after Nick. So not this April, but not this April coming, but next April. But I just can't even myself. I cannot even get my head around what is going to happen after that. And it's just I just there's too many unknowns.
And unknowns will kill you. Unknowns will kill you. Like worrying about it, right? Like I mean,
and I just switch off. I just have to switch off from it. I just can't. I'm just like whatever. Okay. And I just think about kind of what's going on. I try and go back to like right now and today, and like trying to work out whether he's actually weed his pants or not. But so
it's just amazing the differences in the educational system. Like I've listened to a bunch of episodes and understanding you guys don't have the early intervention stuff, but here in the States, if you have a kid with special needs, the local school has to take you, right? And
this is what
obviously
I heard.
So and obviously some school districts are more prepared for this, and they have more resources. They have teachers and they have aides that can help out. But every kid has something called an IEP, an individualized education plan. And so we obviously haven't had to do this yet, but I've read a ton of literature about it, talked to people. Like you have to go in and sit in front of the principal, vice principal, all the kids' teachers, and some of the aides, and you have to advocate for your kid, right? And the goal obviously is full inclusion. 100% of the time he's spent in the normal class, maybe they have with the assistance of an aide. But it varies based on your kid's ability, and so sometimes they might have 25% of the day where they're in the special needs section, and then 75% of the day it's inclusive in this. But you go and you hammer out an educational plan, before every year, and then you reconvene. I think I'm going to get it wrong, but you reconvene at different points throughout the year to see if you're hitting milestones, and you gather back up. Do we need to amend this? Do we have to adjust this? But the local school has to take you, and they have to provide some sort of special needs education. And if they don't, on the like immediate one, they have to provide busing to the next closest school that can do that. So it's like I hear these horror stories about how you have to go in front of these people, and you have a music teacher that's now the primary instructor for your son, and it's like, oh man, You know, you're already fighting an uphill battle. It's just it seems exhausting, man. I don't know how you guys do it, and you know, so it seems like some of the fears are warranted on your side. So sorry you have to go through that.
I think it's like, I've said it so many times in here. It's just the country is like light years behind a lot of countries, and no system is perfect. I think this is always really important to say, is that there are just there's we you know we certainly fight for the inclusion, and Junko is a huge advocate on this, and I'm really involved with I'm involved that, but she takes it to a whole new level, and I will help her out where I can, but she like I swear she has like almost like two jobs. Like she works here at the school. She's done all the admin. She's like she keeps the wheels moving here at the school, and then she's on all these inclusion conferences, Zooms, everything. Like she's like Superwoman, you know.
Yeah.
Like like I don't know how she does it. I honestly don't know how she does it, because I feel very inferior, because I just do what I can do, which sometimes I feel like I just don't do fucking enough. And but it's she said to her the other day, I said, you know what, I honestly just feel like I'm the driver sometimes. I feel like I just drive you everywhere. I'm like the taxi driver. That's all sometimes I just feel that's all I'm useful for, when I take Jamie take him to get his glasses fixed. Oh, that's right. He smashed his glasses the other day, so we actually have to he had a meltdown and broke his glasses. But anyway, but I do often sometimes feel like I'm just like, man, I'm gonna just like
There's a lot of that.
I love driving. Don't get me wrong, I love driving.
Yeah.
And I do love it. But I feel like that, like, what else can I do with this? Because it's everything's all in Japanese, and it's just like I'm in there, I'm in the rooms, I'm there, I'm helping, like, trying to make sure that Jamie isn't, grabbing, pens and plunging them to the monitors, or so I make it sound so dramatic, but
no, when you guys were at the spa the other day and you're like, I had to make sure you didn't slap anyone in the dick, I about lost it. I almost drove the car out the road. I was like, oh my god. I was thinking about that.
It was actually
I hear you, dude. Yeah.
Oh man. It is never a dull moment, but sometimes the intensity of the situations and the stress that I put on that the frustration that I have, and I don't blame Jamie on this, I blame myself, because it's me. I'm the one who fucking has to kind of regulate myself, and it's my own ability to get through it, and it's hard. It's really hard. Like it's and I just oh man, I'll share something which is kind of it's funny and also really annoying at the same time. We got out the car. We have a van, and we park our van into it's like a tower parking. So you drive it in, and then you have to get out. Yeah, kind of get out quickly, really, because otherwise, like, people get called and they come around while you're still in there and stuff like that. And so anyway, he wouldn't get out the van. He was right in the back seat of the van. And I was just like, come on, Jerry, just get out the van. He's like, no, like this. And I was just like, oh my God, come on. And I just wanted to get out the van. We hadn't had a kind of a great day so far. Anyway, I was just like, just get out the van. Come on. He's like, no. And so I was like, right. So I had to like pull him out the van, yank him out the back of the van, got him out. And I've used all my might. He's like over 50 kgs now. And when you have someone who's 50 kgs and just like, well, he's just hanging onto the seat, he's hanging onto everything, he's, you know, and then with a spare hand, he's like swiping at me, trying to give me some left hooks. Maybe he should go to boxing. And then he gets out, and I'm like, right, I've got to get him outside. I've got to get him out through this kind of gap between the back of the van and also the wall. And on this wall, there's all these sensors that kind of, and I'm like, oh man, he's going to kick these sensors. He's going to because if you kick the sensors, they're just way out of whack, and then we'll never close the thing. So I'm like, I'm essentially like straight arming him out of this kind of confined space, and he's screaming, and I'm like, come on, just get out of here. And then he trips because I'm kind of like trying to get him out in front. He's in front of me as well, and he trips and he goes down. This is right at the entrance. He goes down, and I just, because I'm right there, so I fall over him, and he goes down, and I do this. I don't know how I did this, but I do like a roll. I essentially like I find myself going my right shoulder first over him, hand on the ground, and I then find myself a little bit of slow motion, and I'm back on my knees, and then my phone is flying around my phone. I always carry my phone around my neck on like a like one of these things, like a
lanyard, yeah.
And I managed to catch my phone in my right hand as it's about to smash into the ground because it's flicked around my head. And I catch it, and then I glance up, and Jamie's like, because he doesn't like those moments. Of course, no one likes those moments. He's having it. His meltdown has started, and he's just pissed, and he's like, ah! He's screaming away. And then Junko's standing there, and Junko's like standing going, what the hell's just happened? Like, how did what? And I'm in agony as well because of what I've just done. Like a 45-year-old man just like done like what Junko referred to as a martial arts role. Never done martial arts in my life. I don't know how I managed to do this even role, and I still don't know how I managed to do it. But that whole situation was on me, and you know, and it wasn't. It was just I could have just handled it so differently because if I was in a different headspace, and that was like, you know, I hadn't had headspace for, you know, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I hadn't made it happen. And it was, and that's the kind of reality of what the nasty reality of what happens in my world when I don't look after myself. I can't react to situations that I need to calm down. That's essentially it. Calm down, regulate myself, and deal with it properly. And when I know when I do that, good things happen.
Yeah, well, when you're tired and when you're fatigued and when you're stressed, like, right, your problem solving skills sort of like shut down a little bit, right? And then, or you just want to do things one way. And it's like I get like that too. Okay, I'm gonna grab him and get him out of the car, right? Whereas my wife is so much better at me than that, and like you have to make a game out of it. You know, he's not gonna do it this way. You know what I'm saying? But like when you're tired and when you're stressed, like you only like I just wanted to fucking do it this way because otherwise I'm gonna lose my shit right now. Like I need him to just do that. Right. And like I said, Bodhi's a toddler now, and he's getting to be very opinionated. And like he's now all of a sudden he's not that great every time we go out to a restaurant. Like there's starting to be more and more tantrums, right? And like the one thing that I wrestle with too is like how much of this is just normal toddler behavior and how much of this is, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, it's our first kid, right? We have no other benchmark. And so like I feel like some of it is kind of normal, but I hear you, man. Like I'll be tired and I'm just like, we make him 6 dinners a night, right? Because like, oh, okay, he doesn't want chicken tenders tonight. Okay, let's go make him some tater tots. Oh, he doesn't want, look, he eats tater tots every time, but it's like, okay, let's, you know, he's not going to eat this. Like he needs to eat this. I'm only making him one thing tonight. I'm sick of this. I'm not I'm not cooking another meal. Like if he doesn't eat it, he's going to go hungry. She's like, oh no, he has to eat something. But I hear you. And it's like, it's the same bullshit. It's the same, like, you just you're at your wits end. They're like, no, I made him dinner. Like, all right, you want to stay in the car? Car's going up.
It's going up. Like the amount of times we're like, Jamie, you know what happens if you don't get out the car, right? Is that you're going to be going up, and like, just get out the car, please, please, just get. Like, you know, oh my God.
Yeah. No, and you're tired, and you don't know any other way other than just like get out of the car. Right?
I think it's maybe I got to tackle it differently. Maybe I've got to just be like, you know what? If I feel myself and I'm just going to be hitting that ceiling of like, there's my anger, boom, there it is, and I'm tired. Is that if I can, and it's not always possible, if I can, and if Junko's there, is like, Junko, can you do this, please? Now the challenge with that is that he is bigger than her now, and that he he will just he will hit and everything as much as he does with me.
Yeah.
So sometimes, but it's a battle, right? Of who's in a better frame of mind to deal with it, and who's physically got the strength to kind of get him out of that situation that he's in. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Let's have a look here. Let's talk about laughter. Okay.
Yeah.
Laughter is something that I think is really important, and I need to do so much more. Just laugh at myself, laugh at life. When was the last time you had a good laugh? And just
man, every day. I'll find something on the internet that just like makes me laugh. Like I told you, I send out some of that stuff to my buddies. So everybody's always sending me like, tweets, stuff on Reddit, and just like I see my text feed is just bombarded with like hilarious stuff, and I'll see something that makes me laugh, like a good belly laugh, like if not every day, every other day. I'll see something, and like I absolutely need that, like absolutely, I need that in my life.
That's good.
As I'm like, I think my wife kind of referred to me nicely as a slapdick once. She's like, you're just always like. I never thought I'd end up with a slapdick like this. I'm like, oh, what are you gonna do? But yeah, like I love that stuff. I love it. I have to laugh. I'm always looking for the, growing up, my dad would accuse me. He's like, he's just looking for the next good time. I'm like, what's wrong with that? So,
all right,
that's huge. That's huge for me.
Yeah.
And luckily, my friends are like hilarious. They're like, no one takes themselves too seriously. There's a lot of laughter in my life, which is absolutely something I need.
I think I need to get some more comedy going on in my life. I think I need to I think I just need to get some more comedy and just have a good laugh.
Yeah, I mean, look, no offense, I don't know if is Japan known as like the comedy central of
of course. Well, East. Actually, ironically, Osaka is actually known as the capital of comedy in Japan.
Oh, all right.
Yep, it's a lot of people don't know that, but of course it's all in Japanese.
I didn't know that.
So it's only in Japan. They're full of jokers down here, and they will. There's comedy shows and on TV. They're all just. I don't find it funny, to be honest. Sometimes I just find their comedy just like it's just. Oh, I don't know. I don't even think it's a cultural thing. I do think it's
that's what I was getting at. Like how much of it is cultural,
right? A lot of it, but it's also just a lot of it is making fun of the other person, which I don't quite like. And so they'll put these people in situations, and and just like, what are you doing? Like, just laughing at someone else is like, they'll put a false floor somewhere, and then they'll someone walk along and think that they're just going for a nice stroll, and then they'll
Oh,
fall
like the
for
hidden camera shows or something, right?
yeah. Well, it's not even a hidden camera. They got cameras on them. They think that they're doing some kind of show for something, and then like the dude will just fall through the floor, or whoever it is will fall through the floor, and then they won't just fall through the floor. Then they'll be covered in like water will be poured on them, and then piled on with like a whole lot of itchy.
Sure.
It's like itching powder or something. It's like it's got to be something else. It's got to be something else. So I don't really get into it. I much prefer. I'm a bit of a British comedy kind of guy, and so maybe I just need to dive into YouTube and go into some kind of rabbit hole with YouTube and get some comedy going on. Maybe that's my maybe that should be my fix.
Something like that.
But actually, I do like this what we're doing here because I actually find myself having a good laugh. Just hearing the stories, and I just love sometimes just laughing because it's just great, and that's what that's so important.
It is.
Okay. What are four, if you could tell us 4 words that sum up your journey as a dad of special to a dad with a child with special needs? 4 words.
Rewarding. It's incredibly rewarding to see there be successes, and sometimes even when you just make it through a day, especially tough day, but getting up, showing up, seeing the improvements that he's making, it's a rewarding experience, right? What are some other words? Rewarding. It tests your patience, man. And I think we're only at the very beginning of this because, like I said, Bodhi's 27 months. We haven't even had, I don't know if he's at the age where he can throw a proper tantrum or anything like that yet, so it's patience. It's been enlightening. Part of the reason we picked his name, Bodhi, means enlightened or enlightened one, and so we knew that this experience was going to be we knew we were going to learn a lot about ourselves, about our relationship, my wife and I, our relationship with our son. So it's been enlightening in that way. And then what's another good adjective? I would say it's at times it can be unnerving because there's so much that the biggest thing that went into our decision about in general is there's so much you don't know and that you can't plan for, and you have to try and prepare the best you can and know that you did the best with the knowledge that because we've made decisions that, looking back, even at this short period of time, was like that might not have been the best decision, or we waited too long to do this, or we did something like that. So it can be unnerving because there's a lot of the stuff that you're tackling for the very first time, and you don't know if you get it right, and it can be that can be taxing, So, yeah. Those are rewarding, test your patience, enlightening, but sometimes unnerving.
Yeah,
those would be my 4.
That's cool, man. Music. Let's kind of wrap it up with some music.
Yeah, sure.
So, does music play a role in your life?
Yeah, it does. I mean, look, I haven't listened to any new music since like 1998. Right? Like my, my buddies are all
this will be
into like
great.
music.
I think our playlist is going to
I,
get some classic
man,
hits in there.
no,
Then by the looks of it.
everybody's into like, where do you guys find all this new music? They're like reading articles, listening to all these bands. My brother makes fun of me. He's like, "It's the last new band you listened to?" Like I named a band. He's like, "Dude, they haven't been around. Like the last album they put out was in 2010." I was like, "Ah, shit." Sometimes I forget it's 2023. Like I love punk rock. I love like you know the 90s, 80s, 90s punk scene was great. Love ska. What else do I like? Yeah, rock.
What's a song? Like what I mean, what is a
Definitely.
song that if you could a song that's just like a great song, one couple of songs that you
Sure.
could name.
Yeah, check out Rancid. If I Fall Back Down. It's called Fall Back Down. It's a breakup song. But it's like it's pretty uplifting. It reminds me of like my friends. It's a song about like having good friends. And the dude's wife left him, and he realized that he had all his friends and his bandmates lift him back up when he was down.
Right.
And it was good. It's by a band called Rancid. They're probably one of my favorite bands. You guys have a pretty vibrant punk scene in Japan too, so maybe I'll come over and check that out. We can have a beer sometime. What else? What are some other good songs?
What do you put? What do you put on? Do you have music in the car when you're driving anywhere, or you just like?
We listen to some podcasts. Like I'll listen. Like I have some playlists that I've made from like Spotify when I work out and stuff. When I run.
There we go. This is good. This is good. Okay. So what when you're working out? What are you listening? What, I mean, is it this song here, or is it like?
Yeah. Or just like whatever playlist I made. Let me see. I'm gonna pull it up for you because I was listening. I went for a run today for the first time in a while. So right. Let me see what we got on here. So I hope it doesn't play in my headphones when we're here. But yeah, like I mean, Rage Against the Machine. We've got some Sublime. Sublime was my favorite band like forever.
Sublime.
Rancid.
Oh my god.
We got some Goldfinger on here. You have Social Distortion, Catch 22, Bouncing Souls. Like I said, I haven't listened to a new band since like the 2000s. So if anybody who's reading this and you want, I guess you know what a new band is? The Interrupters. They're like a punk ska band. They're new. I like them.
Okay. So give us one more track. We've got the Rancid
one more
track
song.
here. One more track that like we can put into the playlist, and because there's a playlist that I have for the dads, and it's on there. So like it's certainly got a whole range.
Do you have like a theme? Do you have like a theme to the playlist, or is it just
no way? No, it's a couple of songs from every dad we just put on there. And I actually went through and played it. I don't know, like about a month ago. I was like, oh, there's some really interesting songs on here. This is so random.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably have stuff that's like all over the place.
Oh yeah. There's Disney songs and everything, mate. So it's all like.
Oh really? How about This Lonely Place by Goldfinger. That's a great song.
Okay.
So people have some that's I think that one came out in like 97. See, so you got like I'm trying to think of a good new one that I've heard. I mean, like I listen to the radio, like I know like the new songs and stuff, but it's not like I'm dialing that up. So
right, okay.
Yeah. But
okay, you don't live in a music hole. You just
no. My buddies are always playing me new stuff too, and so I was like, yeah, okay. That's cool. I mean, I wouldn't say that like I eat, live, and breathe music. It's just like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's so much of like the nostalgia thing for me. Like, oh, I remember where I was one time. I heard this song, or I was doing that. You know what I'm saying? So that's
cool. All right,
that's more of.
And I'm going to ask you a new question because, like, you just kind of alluded to something there. Podcasts. What's your favorite podcast right now?
Man, I'm not like a great long form podcast guy. I listen to like human interest stories. So, your episodes are pretty good. They're like 40 minutes and get in, get out. I mean, the only
not recently. They're almost like 2 hours long. Our ones now.
well, you break them up though. You break them up. So I'm like, all right, I'll catch part two next time. I mean, like honestly, I'm not a huge podcast guy, but I listen to like This American Life. It's an NPR program that we
Right.
get here, and it's just like This American Life is good. What else do we listen to? Oh, you know what? There's a good. My wife's yelling from the next room podcast that we listen to.
Oh, she's giving you tips.
Yeah, I was like,
This
she
one.
just came. Yeah, she just put the boy to bed. Hang on, I don't want to mess this one up because it's actually a good one. It's by this guy at the Atlantic. He studies like happiness. It's
Oh.
called How to Build a Happy Life.
How? Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm gonna check that one out. How to
I
build.
think it started in 2021, and there's only 6 episodes from last year, but it's interesting. They
Okay.
tackle some different topics and some of that stuff. So
All right.
that's a good one.
All right, man. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put these. I'm gonna put those links to these podcasts in our show notes, so those
Yeah,
who
cool.
are interested can tap into it and get into it as well.
Yeah.
All right, man.
And I'll send you a note with all the songs that I forgot because, like I
Oh,
told
wonderful.
Froze Up, I did not.
Wonderful. All right, Chris,
Those are
man.
the good ones.
It has been awesome, and I appreciate your time, and it's really good to hear your journey. I've been very excited to sit down here today, you know, and listen and hear. And I've probably talked way too much actually today, but shit happens. That's just how I've played out.
No, I'm honored to be on the show, and you know, we had a friend that he just changed careers because he has a son with special needs, and he's like, what do we want to be known for in this life? And so he changed careers, and now he's like working with kids with special needs. And I thought of that quote, and when I thought of you, because it's like, you know, what are we going to be known for? So you're being known for this and helping people out, and you know, exploring people's journey. So I hope that I know it's cathartic for you in some ways, but I also hope you get something out of knowing that you're helping so many people. So cheers to you, man. And
Thanks, man.
it's a great thing that you're doing.
I appreciate that, man. It is.
Yeah.
I get a kick out of hearing exactly kind of, you know, what you just said, because it's if you know, one person, you know, says, hey, like, you know, I love it, like it's great, I really enjoyed this, or I liked this, or this kind of part of this in an episode, or I related to this, or like, you know, that's where it's at, because again, it's that whole, it's because it's, I talked about this before, right? There's a lot of mums will do this. They will generally kind of talk about it. But again, dads will not. We won't. Like we'll do a podcast talking about sports. Oh, we'll sit down and talk about sports all day. But no, we won't talk. We won't. It's talking about our challenges as a dad with special needs. Look after children with special needs. That is a very different thing to talk about, and it's not an easy thing to talk about. And I think it's hearing other dads is really important, because it makes the dads out there, and I know there's so many dads out there who are just like feel like they're on their own, right? And they don't have a support network, and they're just, you know, trying to get through the day, trying to get through everything, and it is tough, and hearing and trying to find other ways of getting around it, filling their cup, you know, getting help. So yeah.
Well, have me back on in 2 years, because half of Bodie's life he's been an infant, so I feel like I still might have those rose-colored glasses on, right? Like when he turns 4, 5, and 6, I might have a completely different outlook on it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is because it will change, and I think that's
Yeah.
the reality. I think that's good that you know that it's going to kind of change in some way. How it's going to change, we don't know. You don't know, and it's just having all the what's the word I'm looking for here? Like all the toolkit, the tools in your tool bag to kind of get you through those things, right? You know, going out, doing the boxing, going for the run, you know, listening to a podcast, doing a podcast, you know, all those things are very real. Talking to your therapist, talking to your counselor, whoever it is, talking to your mates, you know, all that shit is like, it's invaluable. It is unbelievably invaluable, and it is, and it will keep changing as well. You'll add things in, you'll take things out, right? And that's how it how it looks really. So good on you, man. And
Yeah.
I will. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So fantastic, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for
Thanks
having me.
thanks
Keep
for
those
sharing.
buckets full. Keep the buckets full. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, man.
Cool,
I
man.
appreciate you.
Awesome. Nice one, man. All right, take it easy, and
Yeah.
and we'll speak to you soon, huh?
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
All right, take care. Thanks, man.
All right. Take care, man. Be well.